And I will only show you the free and the good ones because there are so many out there. And I will show you how to engage a variety of learners in your class. And I don't know if you attended yesterday's lunch when we talked about universal design for learning, so it's absolutely under that umbrella. And I will also show you how your students can document their coursework and track progress. How you can provide individualized and detailed feedback easily and quickly, and how to encourage your learners to use technology and be creative. So sort of take this gamification into your courses, even if they have nothing to do with science and technology and art. You can also, you can always build upon those skills. And how to gather data from your students to assess their learning. So these will be our goals for today. And what you can see right now, this map that I'm showing you, and I will turn into a presentation tool. This is called MindMeister, and this is a Google app that I use with my students. Let me just zoom out so you can see what the map looks like. So this is MindMeister, and you can see it's mindmeister.com, and you can always sign up using your Google account. The students can, I always tell students, use your american.edu, Gmail, Google Drive, and just sign up. Whatever I use in the classroom, sign in using that Google account. Now, as faculty, you probably don't have an american.edu Google Drive because I've been told that it's only students who have that because we have the Microsoft Outlook email. But simply what you can do is you can create a new Google Drive and you can attach it to your whatever at american.edu, and then you receive everything. So it's very, very nice. I had colleagues who were frustrated and they said, well, I had to use my private account, but then everything was mixed with my private folders, with the school folders. So just create a completely new Google Drive and attach your american.edu email to it, and problem is solved. Just make sure that you don't activate the email function in that Google Drive, because then I think you received several emails and you probably don't want that to happen. But with your students, please tell them no private Google accounts, use your american.edu for everything. And so, like I said, this is a mapping tool, MindMeister. What I could do, and let me just show you that function, if I click on this I button, I'm using the free-floating image here, or organization, but I could do the one that's called aligned, or left aligned, right aligned. So this is when sort of art can come in, and students can choose, or you, if you choose to use this for you as your teaching tool, you can use set themes. Then you can change the themes, you can change the colors, the outlook, so just, anything that you wish to do with them. Or you can create a map from scratch. Now, I have to tell you that takes a long time. So I think I did that once, and I just decided to go with already set themes because it's just so much more convenient. And so once you have a map, you can just click on other themes and just customize, change the colors, change the layout. So it's very easy to use. One thing, you can get 3 maps for free. Everything else needs to be upgraded, and it's about $5 a month. I paid for the entire year, it was $45 because you get then you get 10% discount, but it was well worth it. So it was a great decision. For the students, I tell, okay, so if you're happy with the 3, and then you can always delete maps that you're not using anymore, I tell them just take a screenshot, save it, delete it, open a new map. But I tell them if you think that this is something that you want to use later on or for other classes, then really $45 a year is not a large amount of money. So some of them decide to actually sign up for it, and others just use other mapping tools. And I will show you the other mapping tool as well, which is free and it allows for more maps. But as you can see, I can include images, I can include And let me show you that. I can add videos, and down here, I can collapse the map as well. So I can just click on this and it opens up more. Or if I don't want the distraction, then I close it and then there's less information. And let me just show you that with this click, the map turns into a slideshow. Students really, really like it. They like the idea that they can start planning. They can start adding the ideas. And then once they're ready to present their ideas, they can just click on the button and then use it as a slideshow. And you can do the same thing. What I do with maps like this is I introduce new concepts in my classes. My students are either undergraduate students or graduate students, international students, who are not familiar with academic English. So they don't know how to put a problem solution analysis together or how to write a research paper. So I talk them through brief concepts step by step using this mapping tool, and I call them roadmaps. And I ask them to listen to me as I explain. So I use a screen recording tool as well, and I record my explanation. And I also share the map link with them. They can just click on it and they can listen to me at home before they come to class. They can listen to me. They can click on the links that I provide, the YouTube videos that I provide. And when they come to class, we can go ahead and discuss any questions that they have. The videos that I provide here about, I don't know, about 10 minutes long or under 10 minutes. Because of course, you know, if you go over 10 minutes, they're gonna probably just, you know, stop looking at something else. So I try to limit it to a certain amount of time, which is under 10 minutes. Let me tell you why I started thinking about how to use certain educational online tools and why. And basically, the point was unmet expectations. I've been to many workshops where people talked about the unmet expectations of the 21st century employers. Students don't know how to collaborate. They don't know how to express themselves using soft skills. They don't know how to plan properly, how to organize themselves, and how to do problem solving, data analysis, how to obtain and process information. So this is a list of complaints coming from the employers. And of course, there's the unmet expectations of faculty, the evils of technology. Yes, sorry.
Are you sending the link to this?
Yes, right after the presentation, I will email it to everybody. Yes, and if you're not on the email list, just let me know and I can email you everything. The reason why I didn't share it earlier, because if you go on the map and you start clicking, then this will go away and it would be just chaotic. But anyway, so when I said evils of technology, I stopped asking students or allowing them to send me Microsoft Word documents. I have nothing against Microsoft Word. I think it's a great tool, but it was somehow always the wrong attachment, the first draft instead of the final draft. It wasn't attached properly. I had students sending me something in Pages. I assume that's Mac. I don't know how to open it, and I was not going to buy whatever software to run it. So I told everybody, okay, we're using Google. And students are more or less familiar with the system. Even if I have a lot of Chinese students, they're not allowed to have Google in China, but they do have systems which are very, very similar. So it's like a Google-like systems. They know what they're doing. And of course, when I was talking to other faculty, they were always saying, well, I'm trying to integrate technology, but I'm not very tech savvy, and they cost a lot of money, or they are discontinued. So there were all these complaints. And what I can see is if Google goes after a new program or a new app that seems to be working, first of all, they will make it free. Sometimes the free version is the limited version, but still it's free. Are you familiar with Grammarly? So it used to be for money, and now the limited version is for free. And it's now Google Chrome extension. So if Google buys something, then they will try to make it somewhat free. And then once you realize that this is something you want to continue using, then of course you can pay a little bit for it. But I don't think that they will discontinue anything or disappear all of a sudden. And of course, sometimes I had to assign somewhat challenging tasks, and I was wondering, why can't they understand what I'm asking them to do, and how can I cater for the different learning approaches? Again, let me just refer back to the universal design for learning, because there are so many students who try to approach a task differently, and if I can get to them in different ways, then perhaps pretty much almost all of them can complete that task. And so that's about the unmet expectations of the learners who could be confused. I'm getting, what am I supposed to be doing here? Although I have, for every assignment, I have purposes. So I explain, this is why you're doing this. And I have the directions. This is how I want you to do it. It's all bullet points. And I thought that it was organized. But sometimes students told me, oh, there was just so much writing. And I just thought, well, I'm sorry, but it was step by step, so I just wanted to help you. But they were complaining about the too much writing, and that's when I turned all those bullet points into roadmaps. So I also explained in a video, this is what I mean, because they did understand the steps, but then I did receive the emails, well, what do you mean here exactly, or how, or what? So I could show them how, and I could even add examples or sort of models of writing from my former students so that they would have a clear example of what a good assignment looks like. And so what I realized is, and of course, as the more you listen to the universal design for learning or read about it, you understand, yes, there's a need for transparency and scaffolding and trying to help students. Years ago, when I was attending a workshop about accessibility, I was training to be an online teacher, and it was all about, or mainly it was about, okay, use subtitles when you prepare an instructional video. And I just thought, oh yeah, I mean, my ESL students would love that, because sure, they can listen to me and I talk very slowly and enunciate everything, but the subtitles would really, really help them. So I thought, well, although those people didn't think about the ESL students, because then I told them, we can use with that group, and they said, oh yeah, what a great idea. They didn't think about them. So the more you start thinking about all these approaches, the more you realize that technology can definitely help you. So you heard about universal design for learning yesterday, but I highly recommend listening to Marian Wellmaker, because she talks about transparency and scaffolding. I was lucky to attend a session at GW about 1.5 years ago when she talked about what it means and what it should look like. If you go on YouTube, she has many videos in which she explains how you can also include transparency in the assignments that you hand out. And once you look at this map, you can just look at her video that I included here. And I think once you start playing it, I'm sure that YouTube will offer you, 10 more of her videos, because that's how YouTube works. And also, it's the era of digital citizenship. I can see that my son, who's in middle school, uses technology a lot, and for his homework, for classwork. So those students who leave high school these days, they come with a set of skills. And so I think that it would be a waste not to build on those skills and not to use them if they are absolutely used to handing in homework, using Google Docs, using Google Slides. They actually do learn about both Microsoft and Google. So I think schools tend to be sort of, stay unbiased. Although yesterday I was listening to an NPR talk with Joshua Johnson, in which they said that there are some school counties that are Google counties and Microsoft counties and Apple counties. So they tend to be like that. But Fairfax is trying to be unbiased and teaches the children both. And so they have the skills. They are absolutely ready to do that. Those students who are self-trained, so perhaps returning or adult learners, you can just show them how to use the skills that they probably already have. And those who are completely unfamiliar with it, they can learn about these skills very, very quickly. I always tell students, if I want you to use a certain Google app or tool, please watch the video tutorial because it's going to be an hour of frustration no matter what app you want to use. So sometimes they admit that they were frustrated for an hour and then they did watch the tutorials and it's all good. So you can use these apps to collaborate, student-student collaboration, student-teacher collaboration, to express their creativity, to reflect on a work that they completed, and of course, like I said, transparency or problem solving. The list could continue and go on and on. And basically, the ultimate goal here is student success, completing that course, the mastery of the content, and enjoyment at the same time. And so let me show you how you can Google your way. And at home, once you click on this arrow, then you will see a slideshow in which I show you the tool and what it looks like. And let me start with Google Docs. Are you using Google Docs in your classrooms at all? Or not yet? I hope that from next week it's all Google Docs. So what I ask students to do is I ask them to create one Google document in their Google Drive, just one, and they're going to use that one document throughout the entire course. And we name it their course and learning portfolio. Now, I have a template that I put together for them, so they are going to copy that template into their empty Google document. And as you can see, the template that my students use, well, it's still uploading, but I believe it's about 66 pages, the empty template. Once they add their written work, it goes a little bit beyond 100 pages. And they are impressed with what they have completed throughout the course. I can definitely track progress. So if I'm unsure whether or not the student has made progress throughout the course, I can just browse through the entire document and I can make a decision. Yes, you're ready to move on, or sorry, repeat, but that barely ever happens. The headings help create an outline, so students don't have to scroll down 66 pages. They can always just click on wherever they want to go in the document, and so that helps me a great deal. You can decide how much written work or how much work you want them to include in the course and learning portfolio. I don't include everything in it, partially because I don't want to sell course content. So I don't want students to be able to then share with others like, oh, look, this is the entire course. So it's really just the major assignments. Everything else is in Blackboard. And I tell them, as soon as the semester is over, you will have no access to this Blackboard course anymore because I will make it unavailable. But this one, you will always have. So you can always look at what you've done and what type of editing suggestions I had for you and why and my explanations. Let me just come back here and open the other template as well, which is for another course, but it's also, so if you click on this at home, you can see my explanation. So I explain what I include and why in these templates. And these templates are just examples. So you can modify them anyway. So whatever fits the purpose of your course. Similarly to this, if I see that something is wrong with the student's writing, I just leave my comments in the margin, in the comment box. And as you can see, so students have their brainstorming notes and bullet points, and then they have, just move it down here, then they have the map underneath. This is the mini version of the MindMeister in Google Docs. So in Google Docs, you have something that's called add-ons. And there's, like I said, the mini version of MindMeister. It's just you select everything that's bullet pointed and then click on it, and it's just a very basic map. So for simple things, this one is good enough. We don't have to go to the big MindMeister where you have the images and the videos. This is just like a quick thing. If you teach a new term, a new concept, then students can sort of map it out, give a definition, give synonyms, explanations, examples. So that's one thing to use it for. And so this is an example of student writing, and as you can see, the pink is my editing suggestions, and it's similar to Microsoft Word's track changes. It's the same exact idea, and you have the comments here on the side. I always tell students that if you don't understand why I'm suggesting something, then reply here and ask me, what do you mean? Why did I need to add the comma? Or why was it a sentence fragment? What was, I don't understand. So we can have a mini conversation there. And so I have my suggestions here. Now, something that students are not allowed to do is, there's a check mark normally here and an X mark. So if you click on the check mark, it means you accept the suggestion, and the X means that you reject it. And I tell students you're not allowed to touch any of that. I made a mistake one semester when I allowed them, so then they would never see their first drafts because the changes were made, and I thought that was not a good idea. So now they just have to copy the original, the first draft, and they have to add the first draft underneath the grading rubric, and I will talk about the grading rubrics that I also include in this portfolio. And so they have the revised work underneath. So they can truly see the difference between the first draft and the final draft as well. Now, if a student has a lot of mistakes, and normally I would say, come and talk to me during office hours. What I do, and I'm not trying to be lazy or avoid meeting them in person, but I create a small video and I explain what the mistakes are and how I want the student to correct them. The good thing is, especially with international students who have limited English skills, is that they can listen to me 5 times, 6 times. They can pause the video and address the error. Once they come and see me in the office, it happened to me several times. Perhaps I used the word that they were not familiar with, and they just kept thinking about, what was that word? I didn't understand. So then after that, all I sounded was like in Snoopy, this wah, 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 because they just kept thinking about that. And this way, I either type the comments or explain using words, and they can still say, sorry, I didn't understand that one part. So there could be an ongoing conversation without setting up office hours. Now, of course, I do keep the office hours, so if there's something really confusing, then that's something that we can address there. But for quick feedback, that can happen the next day, that day. They receive a notification if I make these comments. So on their Gmail, it shows up immediately. It's very convenient.
So where do you create the video? Can you talk to them?
I will show you that in 1 second. But let me just show you. So if you zoom out, then this is what the templates look like. So with all the comments. And by the way, when I made that video, I just add the video link right here in the comment box. And I just say, please listen to my video feedback here. It always makes me a little bit disappointed when they click on result because then it just goes away. And I'm like, oh, you want to keep it? But they already fixed the error. So now let me move on to the grading rubrics. So I include grading rubrics in these portfolios. For the final draft in Blackboard, I also have the Blackboard grading rubric. So I'm not neglecting the Blackboard grading rubric, but Blackboard doesn't allow for the interactive element. Therefore, that's just a very simplified sort of, this is the final version. Let's just, draw our conclusions, pass, fail, not so much. For the initial feedback, I would like to give very detailed feedback, but then I also tell students that these single point grading rubrics are their checklists. So I want them to use them as their checklists. And so this is what they look like. This is actually one grading rubric right here. So this is just one, and then this is a smaller one, depending on the assignment. If something is really simple, low stakes, there's not a lot to discuss, then it could be just a very brief grading rubric. If something is more complex, then of course I include a lot of items there. Now, what makes it interactive is this. Let me just switch to this one, and perhaps go to the first. Yeah. So this is the grading rubric for the rhetorical analysis. You can see different colors, and it's just, I don't know, I think it's just easier for the eyes that you're looking at the grade as the outline, if they have a nice outline. Basically, did you make an essay outline, or did you just start typing? And then ideas might come or might not. The yellow is normally the skills that they have to learn how to put together a rhetorical analysis. And for instance, if I tell students, well, you have to have a solid thesis statement, and they think, what does that one look like? Well, they can just click on this, and it will take them to a YouTube tutorial. I normally try to pick something really short, because if you add the video that's like 45 minutes long, they're going to immediately click on the next. Or if I say you have to describe the intended audience, and they think, oh, what is the intended audience? They can just click on it, and again, there could be either a YouTube tutorial or a website or an image, anything. What I really like about Google Docs is that you can simply, for instance, if there's thesis statement, you can simply just highlight it, and there's a search function. So there's Google search within Google Docs, and you can just add the hyperlink already. But again, watch the tutorials, how to do it. There are many step-by-step tutorials to follow. In fact, here in this map, let me just zoom out very quickly. Once you look at this map at home and you click on the expand button, what you can see that I added a lot of tutorial videos for you. So you know how to use Google Form, Google Docs, Google Keep, Google anything. So all those tutorials are right here. And when you tell students to, depending on what kind of students you have, sometimes you can actually tell them, use YouTube and then find a tutorial. But students who are not used to it, or they would probably spend an hour on trying to find the one tutorial instead of just picking the first one that pops up, because most likely everything else is exactly the same but a different person. You can provide one or two tutorials and say, pick one and just watch it. I normally choose the ones that I use for myself as well. And just one last thing about the grading rubrics. So I have two columns. I have concerns and proficiency. Here, I can either just type a 0 or an X or something if they did not manage to use that skill, or there's no evidence that like a thesis statement exists or something like that. So I can either just put an X or a 0, or if I feel that there could be, they could use a longer explanation, then again, I can just type my comment here, or I can select that item and then leave the comment in the margin. So it's not just the regular circle something from the grading rubric that we already prepared, but it's more individualized. And it's a lot faster. Once you have this, it's a lot faster for the students. Now, one thing about using grading rubrics, before I added the after test reflection piece, so before I addressed metacognition, my students, sure, they looked at the grading rubric, but did not really pay attention to it. So when I asked them to revise it, I could tell that they did not pay attention to how what I suggested there. I said, well, the thesis statement, I said that it was not there. Oh, really? So a few semesters ago, I introduced after test reflections underneath the grading rubrics. And it's very simply just asking for their feedback, sort of forcing them to read my comments. I will ask them, okay, the instructor's feedback shows that my weaknesses are, and they have to type here. Strengths are, I like to include this one. This is what I learned from the tutor at the Writing Center. Now, if you teach math or other subjects and they need tutoring, then it's just that. Because it makes them realize, oh, I could have gone there and received help. Well, yeah, you could have. Or I asked them, what did you find easy about the task? What was challenging? So just sort of, reflect on the work that they have done. And what were your learning goals? And that's when I tell them, in Blackboard, when you see the step-by-step instructions right above it, it says purpose. So you know why you're doing this. Or something like, I can apply this new skill in other areas such as. So if you're learning problem solution analysis, where else can you use that skill? So it forces them to think. Now, the first time when I asked them to do this reflection piece, they're really not happy, because it really forces them to spend at least 30 minutes just to think about what they accomplished. And there are eye rolls, and they leave them blank, and I always say, you can't get the full score, because this is, like here, it's 5 points, so, it could be 10%, depending on how badly you want them to contemplate on these tests. And especially those students who really need a good GPA, yes, they're not going to leave it blank, but I keep, pushing, I keep leaving comments always, still blank, still not done yet. And the second time, everybody does it automatically. There's no discussion, or they're not trying to fight it anymore. So that's, those are the interactive grading rubrics, and I will share my website with you as well, where there are a lot of templates. Now, Google Keep. Have you used Google Keep before? This is probably one of my favorite tools for several reasons. For students, they can keep their annotated bibliographies, or if you ask them to read something and put a summary together, they can use Google Keep. And so this is how they can stay organized. If they have research ideas, or I asked them to do something, it's called Plans and Accomplishments, and it's a blog that they do on Blackboard. So they can have a list of tasks that they have to complete that week, and then once you use Google Keep and you're done with the task, you can just cross it out. So it's really nice. And they can use their phones, and they can access Google Keep on their phones, and then just cross something off the list that they completed. And so this is what it looks like. It looks like Post-its. They are not colorful unless you color them. And these are actually suggestions that I make for students. And I organize my Google Keep Post-its The pink ones are always about spelling and punctuation. The green ones are always about grammar, and the blue ones are always about vocabulary, repetition, something like that. And so I have several Post-its in different colors. And so what it means is if you have 16, 25, I don't know how many students, and you feel like you're giving the same feedback on and on, you can just copy in and paste, and then it really saves time. So then you don't feel like that it's, you know, the 35th time when you're saying, oh, we're repeating the same words, because then you're repeating the same words. Another good thing that you can insert links. So instead of just saying that there's still subject-verb agreement problems, there's a tutorial link, so just tell them, by the way, this is what it means, and this is what I would like you to review so that you know how to address the problem. Now, for students, if I ask them to put a research paper together or just a brief analysis, I tell them if you use several sources, because normally it's not just one source that they're using several sources, and they might be using several passages from that one source, and I say one source should be one color. And then if you have several passages from it, so again, it's just giving them an idea of how to stay organized and how to plan ahead. And when they have to write a first draft or even just an outline or just they're brainstorming ideas, if they are using sources, I ask them to copy the original passage in the margin of the Google Docs. Partially, you don't have to worry about plagiarism, because then you can see exactly what the original passage looks like and exactly what they did with that passage. So it's a very easy and quick comparison. Are you using Safe Assign at all to check? Safe Assign is okay, but I've been told that it only checks some assignments or checks assignments which have been directly submitted through the system. And so they can take or pay for a paper, and then Safe Assign will never tell you that, oh, by the way, it's been paid for. But so this is the way how I check it. Give me the original passage in the margin so I don't have to be copying and pasting in Google or whatever search engine to figure out where it came from. But again, so this is what the checklist looks like in Google Keep. And so they can have this on their phones and just cross out things that they completed. Sometimes students, when they use sources, and it makes me laugh, but then I also cry a little bit because they have about 25 browsers open. And when I ask them, well, why do you have 25 browsers open on the laptop? Well, because of the sources. And please. And so I teach them this, and then it's a huge relief. Because sometimes if that computer shuts down, those browsers are gone. And so this way they can always go back. Plus, they can just save the links right there. So they can just click on it and it just goes directly to the original source. But you know, these tips and tricks are for my courses. You can use it in your discipline in any other way you wish to. Oh, and Google Keep is for free for any amount of notes. So students don't have to worry that they can have only 3 notes now within this. Now, Google Forms. I use Google Forms to measure the learning experience of my students. I start on day 1, and I introduce them something that's called a course readiness form, which means that I just want to check if they are ready for the course. And questions like, what's your email address, your college email address, what's my email address, what was my first announcement in Blackboard, where is the writing center. So just basic information. I just want to know, are you ready? And I also have something that's called the Student Responsibility Understanding, which is simply a quiz on the syllabus, but it's not a quiz, it's a form. Of course, I'm checking if they are familiar, or if they understood what I said in the syllabus. What do I say about incomplete? What do I say about late work or attendance? So all that's really, really important, but I think that doing it in Google Form is just a lot more fun. I use it at midterm, and I tell my students, so this is a time when I want to hear from you. Something that you're not happy with, you think that something is too much, too little, and I tell them, so this is when I can still change things for you. If you wait until the very end of the course, sure, the next one will be very happy with your suggestions, but you're going to be out the door. So tell me now at midterm. And at the end of the course, it's just a sort of a self-evaluation, because I did have students who said, oh, I was so good. I had such great essays and everything. How come I'm not passing, or I'm just getting a C or this and that? So I have very specific questions that they have to answer. And then people stopped coming to complain about the grade that they received. It's like, did you always contribute to discussions? Did you always come prepared? Did you always submit everything? So it's just, but nicely worded. And so we do that. And there's also something that's called the attendance sheet, which is like an interactive exit ticket. Yesterday, I think that there was one faculty member who asked about exit tickets and how much time we should give students. Now, using online exit tickets, and I just use a Google form for that, I tell them that I don't tell them that I use the attendance tool that's built into Blackboard, but I tell them this is how I'm checking that you're in the class. So you have to sign up. But at the end of the class, there are two questions. One of them is about, what was the most useful thing about today's session? Name something that you clearly understand, that it's solid. And then name one topic that you still have in mind, still confusing. And they are very honest. Now, sometimes students switch those questions, but you can still figure it out. And I tell students, if you can't think of it now, then do it by the end of the day. Because now, if you're teaching a course that meets once a week, you can give them more time. But there's a class that meets almost every day, or there's another class that meets twice a week, so I can't give them too much time because then we're moving on. And so that's something that that you can do. And I have a template on my website if you want to take a look and see what it looks like. And of course, data gathering that students can do. I do it with the undergraduate students and with the graduate students, sometimes for linguistics reasons. So there are students who still don't know how to ask a question, which is grammatically correct. Or they don't know that if you're given 10 questions, you should really ask that question only once and then not sort of repeat yourself 3 times in a different format. And they share these surveys, and students can give the best feedback to each other because they will say, you asked the same question 3 times, it's still the same, so I'm not gonna answer it. Or they ask questions that are really inconclusive. So the students will tell, what do you mean? I can say whatever. I can just say, I don't know, and then you're not going to have. So they're very honest with each other, and they help each other that way. And so they learn. I would say if students do 1 or 2 Google Forms, after that they're going to be experts. And I show them how in Google Forms you can add videos. You can add images, you can change the colors and the theme and this and that. So again, all the artistic feature, and they only spend very little time on designing it, and then they go into the questions, and they can't wait for the answers, the responses to come back, and it's like, ooh, how many students? Or sometimes they have this sort of competition. Because I tell them, what you can do is you can post your questionnaire on social media and see if your friends will be willing to respond. And just this last semester, there was one student who received 25 responses, and everybody was so jealous. Like, oh, you got 25. And I was like, yeah, social media, I have a lot of friends. And so that helped. Because then, of course, they have a lot of data to work with. And so they learn sort of real life skills as well, how to reach out to other people and how to connect, how to use your networking system to get feedback and whatnot. And sometimes what you can do is, I've only tried it once, that students put together an essay plan or a project plan, and so they embed that in the Google form, they send it out, and the other student, there are maybe 3 or 5 questions that the other students have to say about the plan. And so that's one way to discuss something, because then they have the solid feedback, and it's not just like, yeah, it's okay. And I tell them, don't ask for email addresses, so then you don't know exactly who said what. So harsh words can happen. I showed you MindMeister, and let me just switch to Coggle so that you know what it looks like. But by the way, MindMeister, for instance, this is what it looks like when I put together a roadmap for this was, I think, the rhetorical analysis. And so I tell them this is what you need to include in the introduction, rhetorical devices, rhetorical situation, how to connect it to Wally and conclusion, and sources, documenting your sources, and then additional tutorials. I tell them, when you create your essay outline, so follow my lead. If you don't like this organization, then do the one that's free floating or aligned to the left or the right, get different colors, and they are really good. So they do a good job. It's much, much better. And even for me, it's a lot more fun to look at a plan, which is presented this way, than the good old bullet points. So this is more visually appealing for everyone. Now, Coggle looks like this. It allows you to insert images, and students, I think they can choose from templates, but especially this is a low-level class where students really have to create their own branches and links and add their own ideas. Very easy to use. Just watch the tutorial. Not difficult at all. Now, how to record the explanation of that map. Screencastify. Is there anyone who attended the session yesterday about Cultura? I think it's called the Cultura, the media. So I'm not trying to compete with that system. I downloaded it, I looked into it. This one helps me. So this one is easier for me to use. You sign up, so this is a Google Chrome extension. So it means that you have to be in your Google Chrome browser. You sign in with your Google account. And I tell students, use your american.edu Gmail and sign in with that. Because I use Screencastify, but I also ask my students to use it. Now, I create these roadmaps, and let me just exit this and just show you one right here. So, for example, for the undergraduate students, let's see here about thesis statements. So this is my Screencastify explanation right here. When you record in Screencastify, you have 2 options. Option 1 is just to save the link itself. And the link looks like a Google Doc link. So it's the same system. The great thing about using Screencastify tool is, first of all, it's for free, and you can have 50 per month. And trust me, I use it all the time. I've never gone over 50. I mean, I love using